Remember when lunchboxes were metal, TV had only 3 channels, and when the future meant bright chrome and rocket ships? Welcome to the Rocket Kid Chronicles by David Stafford.
Chapter 2. The Great Escape. Trading snow tires for sunglasses. I was born in Los Angeles, but culturally speaking, I come from somewhere between a casserole and a Chrysler. There's a faintly Midwestern slant to my origins, a kind of Tupperware-shaped childhood aura, because my parents were raised in the great mitten-shaped state of Michigan, where people give directions using their hands and consider partly cloudy a promising forecast. They were classic post-war Americans, optimistic, practical, and possessed of an almost mythic faith in the American highway. After they tied the knot in 1955, they did what thousands of other hopeful couples were doing. They packed their life into a car, waved the slush goodbye, and pointed themselves west like frontier explorers, except with better suspension and rubber tires. There wasn't much debate involved. They simply drove until either the land ran out or the weather warmed enough that they no longer needed 3 layers of wool and a snow shovel. For them, that destination was California, an alluring concept built on sunshine, citrus, and the seductive rumor that one could barbecue in February without losing a toe to frostbite. Truth be told, my parents weren't merely in pursuit of better weather, though escaping the icy grip of Michigan winters is a worthy pursuit. There was more to it. You see, my father was 18 years older than my mother, a divorcee with 2 teenage sons, which, in her family's eyes, made him less a charming suitor and more a baffling generational anomaly. If that weren't scandalous enough, my mother was initially engaged to his nephew. This led to vigorous debates and impassioned voices, along with at least one aunt who fainted, though she may have just dozed off. So they eloped, loaded up the car, waved a brisk goodbye to the Great Lakes and the greater in-laws, and set their sights on the land of minimal parental supervision. They left behind the snow and abandoned an entire opera of domestic disapproval, like a touring production they'd quietly opted out of. Thus began their trek through Illinois' endless cornfields, across the bone-dry stretches of Route 66, past dust storms and motor lodges named Wigwam Inn and Astro Motor Court. They likely ate egg salad sandwiches at roadside diners and took part in animated debates about whether that distant hill was a mountain or merely another mirage. When they finally reached Los Angeles, it must have felt like landing on the moon, except warmer and with a lot more avocado. The palm trees swayed as if personally welcoming them, while the houses sprawled low and wide, flaunting features like breeze blocks, carports, and even actual orange trees in the backyards. The air gave a fragrant blend of ocean, eucalyptus, and that sweetly artificial bouquet of copper tone mingling with leaded gasoline. To them, it might as well have been Shangri-La filtered through a haze of smog. They rolled up to Hyperion Avenue in a sun-faded Chrysler sedan, towing their entire life behind them. They didn't so much choose Hyperion as settle for it. There it stood, a modest stucco triplex with a leaning mailbox and a patch of crabgrass out front that had somehow managed to grow sideways. It was available, it had a working refrigerator, and that was about the extent of their selection criteria. Hyperion Avenue was the kind of place where nothing particularly exciting ever transpired, and that was precisely the charm. This street had the modest ambition of getting people from one hilly neighborhood to another with minimal fuss and gradient. Los Feliz to Silver Lake to Glendale. It wasn't a grand boulevard or an illustrious drive. It was an avenue, which meant that it stretched longer than you'd expect and boasted at least one donut shop for every mile. Back in those days, Hyperion had yet to embrace hipness. It wasn't striving to be anything. It just was. It had gas stations with attendants who called Dad Mac, barber shops with striped poles that spun hypnotically in the sunlight, and corner stores with hand-painted signs promising milk, smokes, and motor oil, and sometimes all in one aisle. The air smelled like warm stucco, car exhaust, and something faintly botanical, like jacaranda trees or some well-meaning neighbor's unsuccessful citrus experiment. You could still hear the clanging echo of the old Pacific Electric red cars, which would sadly stop running in 1961. Most of the houses were squat bungalows and vaguely Spanish-style duplexes in tinted shades of beige my parents had never seen before. Neatly clipped hedges adorned the yards, and the proud residents engaged in passionate debates over Bermuda grass. At the top of Hyperion, just over the hill, stood the grand Glendale Hyperion Bridge. This massive concrete structure looked as if it had been constructed by someone with a deep love for Roman aqueduct and a fondness for municipal over-budgeting. Beneath it flowed the Los Angeles River, which in 1956 was little more than a suggestion encased in concrete, much like a government secret. The whole area had a faint hum to it, as if it were always just 2 degrees away from becoming something very important. After all, this was where Walt Disney had once set up shop, on a little stretch of Hyperion before he packed up his animators and his ambitions and moved to Burbank. People still pointed to the old spot, squinting as if they could still see Goofy walking out for a smoke break. Children played outside unsupervised, often barefoot, and occasionally armed with cap guns or popsicles. They climbed jacaranda trees and pedaled rusty Schwinn bicycles, their handlebars decorated with streamers. Summer evenings brought families together on front porches, all watching the sun dip below Sunset Boulevard, which felt entirely fitting. Radios crooned Sinatra or Elvis, or whoever was managing to remain out of scandal that week. The only real traffic came from folks trying to take shortcuts to Glendale or catch a movie at the Vista Theater before the second feature began. Hyperion Avenue in 1956 wasn't glamorous, storied, or grand, but it had something still more precious: potential. The soft, golden, sun-faded potential that only Los Angeles could conjure, where you could start with nothing but a carport, a view of the reservoir, and an almost comically large number of extension cords, and somehow begin a new life.
Stay tuned for more of The Rocket Kid Chronicles.
Up next, a true tale of the macabre.